Hello there, welcome to ITV News Meridian.
Tonight's headlines in the southeast. One of the worst treatment disasters in the history of the NHS. We hear from some of the thousands given contaminated blood that was meant to help them as a 4-year inquiry reaches its end.
It has to never happen again. The recommendations must be taken on board.
What now? The empty lorry park built for Brexit controls. Plans for a new life for the 200-acre site.
Also on the programme, welcome to the future. The e-sport that combines the physical and the virtual with a new home in Sussex.
And Lord of the Bins, the Brighton waste firm told to dump its name by the global film franchise. Good evening. It's taken 4 years and cost more than £100 million. But today, the investigation into one of Britain's worst medical disasters completed its final day of evidence.
The infected blood inquiry has heard from more than 4,000 victims and their families, as well as health professionals and government ministers who made key decisions at the time. It's believed more than 30,000 patients, many from the southeast, were infected with potentially fatal diseases like HIV and hepatitis C during the 1970s and 80s. Many have since died.
Well, more from our reporter Rachel Hepworth at the inquiry in London for us this evening. Rachel, this feels like a significant day.
Well, yes, indeed. Today is a key moment in what's been a very long and painful process, not just the 4.5-year public inquiry which has been taking place here, but before that, decades of campaigning by victims who've just been desperate to comprehend how such a catastrophe could have happened. Many were haemophiliacs, others were infected during operations or childbirth. And throughout the inquiry, we've heard how for years patients were just brushed aside or stigmatised. Well, today, Sir Brian Langstaff told them that he'd been humbled by the way that everyone had conducted themselves.
I thank you with sincere appreciation for making this a collective endeavour, for the warmth with which you support one another, and for your kind words about the inquiry team and its process. Thank you all, individually and collectively. Thank you and goodbye. For now.
Well, as you can hear from the applause, there has been great respect for the inquiry team. Among those in the room today were Fiona Rennie from Margate with her daughter Molly. Fiona was infected with hepatitis C, which had a huge impact on both her health, her job and her family. And she's been following the inquiry closely.
All we'd like now at the end of it is to have some respite from it all, and I'd like to feel peaceful around the whole thing, not so angry, not so fearful. The community every day is hearing of someone else that has passed away from infected blood, so it has to never happen again. The recommendations must be taken on board.
And Rachel, the infections weren't confined to haemophiliacs and weren't only hepatitis and HIV.
No, that's exactly right. There were others too. And I've been speaking to the parents of a young man from Brighton who was infected with the human form of mad cow disease. Now, his parents are seeking answers too. Mark Buckland was bright, popular and articulate before the symptoms of new variant Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease began to take their toll. His parents nursed him through his final months. It was 17 years ago, but it's still raw.
Not something that's easy to bury your son or daughter. It's a very hard thing to do. He was a great kid. You know, he fulfilled everything we ever wanted in him for a son. He was absolutely marvellous.
Mark, a vegetarian, had contracted the human form of mad cow disease through a blood transfusion 9 years earlier when he was 24 from an unwitting donor who also died. There's no cure, just a steady decline.
He became a child and an old man.
Very distant.
Couldn't talk, couldn't sleep, couldn't walk, couldn't eat. His body was closing down because his brain was closing down, and he became nothing. And for us to see that, it's hard.
But what compounds the family's grief is that, like many others given tainted blood, Mark wasn't told he was infected, despite doctors knowing years earlier. His parents believe it robbed him of opportunities.
He could have gone around the world, couldn't he? He could have done anything he ever wanted. He could have enjoyed those 48 months he had left. But instead of that, he didn't know anything about it until the last few weeks, because they didn't tell him.
Their story is one of thousands heard at the inquiry over the last 4 years, as Sir Brian Langstaff examines how it was possible for so many patients to be infected. For the vast majority, it was HIV or hepatitis from cheap imported blood. Mark's infection was much rarer, but his parents say the experience of grief and anger is just the same.
Well, I hope lessons are learned. I felt it's been a very long and drawn-out episode with the government, and now it's finally getting recognised. It's not before time.
It's a sentiment welcomed by many, who will be eagerly awaiting Sir Brian's conclusions later in the year. Well, we hope that will be in the autumn. It certainly won't be before September, but as we've been hearing, time is of the essence. Already victims are dying at a rate of 1 every 3 days. And many of them want some time to make memories with their families. They want not just accountability, but some compensation too, so they can make those memories in a way that Mark wasn't able to.
Rachel Hepworth at the inquiry in London, thank you.
All the day's news now, and emergency services were called to a crash involving a truck and 2 cars in Bolcombe this morning. London Road was closed in both directions and no injuries were reported. The driver of the truck was a 25-year-old man from Hounslow. He's been arrested on suspicion of overstaying his visa.
A man who broke out of Folkestone Magistrates Court has been recaptured. He broke the lock of the dock area and then smashed through a first-floor window. The Ministry of Justice say most people breaking out of court are subsequently recaught and must expect to face further charges as a result of their attempted escape.
Southern Water is increasing household water and waste bills by 9.4%, with the average annual bill rising from £401 to £439. The company says it's in line with inflation and it will help it to improve performance. In July 2021, the firm was fined £90 million after pleading guilty to thousands of illegal discharges of sewage which polluted waters in Kent and Sussex.
We know that water companies need to keep the toilets flushing and the taps running, but in a cost of living crisis, any increase is going to be unwelcome by families. And we know that right now, 1 in 5 people are struggling to pay their water bills. We welcome the fact that Southern are reaching out to provide information to customers and working well locally through their Pathfinder programme. But customers are going to want more, and they're going to want it much faster than it's being delivered currently.
Now, after Brexit, the government needed a place to hold and process lorries, thousands of them, and fast. A huge area of farmland was designated for processing cargo and freight for EU border requirements.
In fact, those demands have not materialised, and now there's a huge 200-acre site at Sevington near Ashford lying largely empty. That's not stopped anger about the light pollution. Locals say the night sky resembles downtown Las Vegas or Wembley. So what's going to happen to the site now? Well, Kit Bradshaw is live for us there this evening. So, Kit, the big question, is it quiet and is it bright?
Well, it is fairly quiet, Sangeeta, and it is pretty bright. It's been almost 2 years since this site opened, and when it did, it was thought that fairly quickly there'd be lots more post-Brexit border checks. And while there has been some, many haven't been introduced. They've been long delayed on things like plants and seeds and animal products, and the consequence of that for this site is best seen from the air, from our live drone pictures, where you can see this vast site built to hold 1,700 lorries is largely empty. There are a few here this evening, but big swathes of tarmac unused, and locals tell me this is how it often is, only a handful of lorries or vans at any one time. And the reason is the only government agency currently using it is His Majesty's Revenue and Customs. Those warehouses you may be able to make out in the dark, they were built for checks by DEFRA and Ashford Borough Council Port Health. They're lying unused. And here's the view of 2 local councillors about that.
It's clearly not being used to the full extent that the government intended when they first acquired the site in July 2020. However, this site has been described as a bit of a white elephant, and I think that's slightly unfair because it is being used, but we do need to get the Port Health Service up and running to protect the consumers in the UK.
I'm very concerned about the traffic pollution, which was always bad around Junction 10, and now it's obviously worse. And the light pollution, driving past here in the evening, it's like sort of barren waste which is lit up all the time, and that must have an impact on the people who live near.
It's looking quite bright there this evening. Kit, what is going to happen to the site then?
Well, it was only ever meant to be temporary. The special development order that the government used to build it runs out in 2025. But before then, the local MP, Damien Green, has another idea for how it could be better used.
The first and most obvious use would be instead of Operation Brock. If we need somewhere to put hundreds of lorries, here's a piece of tarmac with hundreds of lorries that you could put on it right next to the motorway. So I, along with some other Kent MPs, have been discussing what next on the whole motorway blockage issue with transport ministers, and I put that forward, so they're going away to think about it.
Well, a Cabinet Office spokesperson has told us tonight that the UK government is committed to creating a seamless digital border which will improve security and biosecurity while reducing friction for businesses. They added that the Sevington Inland Border Facility will play a crucial role in delivering that policy. But with a temporary border park at Ebbsfleet closed and plans for one near Dover scrapped, there are many questions hanging in the air about the long-term future of this 200-acre site.
Kit, live in Sevington, thank you. In other news, an alleged people smuggling leader will go on trial in November over the deaths of 39 men, women and children in a lorry trailer in Purfleet in Essex. The Vietnamese nationals were found dead in the container which had been transported to Essex in October 2019. Maris Dragici is charged with 39 counts of manslaughter and conspiracy to assist unlawful immigration.
Dozens of passengers were forced to run away from a burning train at West Malling Station. The fire started underneath the rail carriage on a train from Victoria to Ashford International yesterday afternoon. No injuries were reported. South Eastern says it'll carry out a full investigation.
And for the second time this week, a rail strike is disrupting services across the South East. Members of the ASLEF union have walked out in a row over pay. There are no services on South Eastern or Southern. They will resume tomorrow.
Now you're watching ITV News Meridian. Still to come on tonight's programme, a sporting challenge with a bit of a difference. The physical and virtual coming together in a new home in Sussex.
And find out what happened when these men in Sussex took on the might of Middle-earth.
More from us, of course, on our website. The details on the screen. itv.com/Meridian is the address. You can call us. 0808 1010 095 is the number. And you can follow us online. We're on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram.
And the ITV Evening News continues with the national and international news at 6:30. With more, here's Charlene White.
Coming up, the very latest on Nicola Bulley. The mother of two disappeared 1 week ago today. Tonight, the tough milestone and the impact on her family and friends. Also ahead, guilty of treason, the man caught at the castle with a crossbow, saying he wanted to kill the Queen. And up for auction, the previously unseen and deeply personal letters written by Princess Diana. Join us for those stories and more from 6:30.
Now, it's easy now to take for granted the right to get married, but it's a right which a decade ago was still not available to same-sex couples.
Well, the first step in changing that happened almost exactly 10 years ago. On February the 5th in 2013, MPs voted for the first time in favour of allowing same-sex marriages.
Well, it was a landmark moment, the significance of which is still felt today, as James Webster has been finding out.
You are now legally married, so congratulations to you both.
Celebrations for one of the first marriages of a same-sex couple in England.
All of my love, I promise you.
Andrew Whale and Neil Allard exchanged vows at Brighton Pavilion, not just in front of their family and friends, but TV cameras too.
Yeah, I can't even explain just how many people were around, and how, when I was at work, everybody was talking to me about it at work. I mean, it was really bizarre to be at midnight, so everything was slightly otherworldly about it.
If a couple love each other, then the state should not stop them getting married unless there is a good reason. And in this day and age, being gay is not a good reason, if it ever was.
The first step in changing the law to allow their wedding was this vote, almost exactly 10 years ago today.
The ayes to the right, 400. The noes to the left, 175.
Watching that debate with her girlfriend was Alex Mathieson.
We didn't do civil partnership because we didn't want what we had to be seen and recognised as lesser. We're just normal married people living normal married, somewhat boring at times lives. You know, we're just doing what normal couples do. And it's the fact that it's just so regular that's impactful almost. It was massive, it was huge, it was exciting, it was a big deal. And now it's just like standard.
Here in our region, around 6,500 same-sex couples have now got married, around 1,000 each year. Dandy Wolfsky-Batson from Brighton regularly officiates at ceremonies.
You have couples who've been together for many, many years, who've been waiting for that incredibly special moment. And we still get that, even though, you know, we're nearly 10 years down the line, you do still get couples who tell you how important that is to them, and actually quite a few foreign nationals who come here to be married because that couldn't happen in their own country.
Alex now works for the LGBT Foundation, a charity which offers support and information. For them, this anniversary coming in LGBT History Month is an important one to mark.
I think we do have to be careful. You know, you see what happens in America, that actually rights that have been enshrined for years can be threatened and in some cases taken away. So I think we need to always be very, very watchful.
And one place where the campaigning goes on is within the Church of England, where next week its governing body is expected to vote in favour of blessings of same-sex relationships in church, but not marriages. James Webster, ITV News.
And we will have more on this next week when the Church of England reaches its decision on same-sex marriage at the Synod.
Right, let's turn our attention to sport. Andrew joins us in the studio. Andrew, a big match at Gillingham tomorrow for a number of reasons.
Yeah, absolutely, on and off the pitch. Yes, Gillingham host Crawley tomorrow. Both teams, of course, looking for a win that would lift them up the table. But that's not all. It will be a packed-out Priestfield Stadium, with the club making it a pay-what-you-can fixture. Supporters have been able to buy tickets for as little as £1 to cheer on the Gills and their new signings. Meanwhile, before the match, there will be a minute's applause for Miles Stockwell. It was the 15-year-old's funeral in Whitstable this week. The keen footballer and ice hockey player was diagnosed with bone cancer just 14 months ago. His family have now launched the Team Miles Forever Fund to help with research into the condition.
Even at his worst ebb, he went to Gillingham to support him. He loved it. He just loved being out and watching the football. It was tremendous, and it's such an honour. And I'd really like to thank Gillingham Football Club for doing that. It's a wonderful thing to do. In here, I know I'm going to crack up probably tomorrow, but it's just worth it. It's just lovely to see that going on and people recognising Miles. It really is just bringing that out so we can get lots of money for his trust to go forward with this bone cancer research. So it means the world.
Yeah, sending our thoughts to Grandad, as well as Mum and Dad, Sarah and Tim, and all the family. Gillingham's opponents tomorrow, Crawley, made 6 signings during the January transfer window, one of them explaining why he made a deadline day switch from Mansfield.
I just think it was the right move for me, really. Come and play football. That's all I want to do, is just play football. So when this opportunity came about, I was kind of buzzing, really, and I was just like, yeah, look, get me here and let's get cracking.
In the Premier League, Brighton host Bournemouth tomorrow, but they'll be without World Cup winning midfielder Alexis McAllister, who's suspended for having racked up 5 yellow cards, while new signing Facundo Buonanotte will be on the bench. Now time for a futuristic sport that's arrived right here, right now. Imagine being part of a team playing in the middle of a huge computer game. Well, that's Hado. It's being pioneered by a group in Brighton who've opened their own training centre after one of their teams was crowned European champions. Andy Dickinson has more.
Zero Accounting Software sponsors ITV Regional Sports Report.
Welcome to the future. Hado, a combination of physical and virtual sport. This is the first permanent Hado arena in Sussex, having been converted from a disused bakery and home to the now 4-time and reigning UK champions and recently crowned European kings.
I think the first time we went to the UK Championships, we actually ended up winning. And it was one of the best feelings I've ever felt, so it was definitely good. It's just really new, so it's like fresh, it's like something different, so it attracts a lot of people like that. And I think it's quite cool because, like, obviously you're wearing loads of tech, there's headsets, handsets, doing a lot of new strategies that you won't see before.
This is a full-size court, 10 by 6 metre. We've been looking for this space for a very long time. It's good to just be able to focus on running the experience, the session, the training, and doing the analytics with the players rather than having to pack it all down and set it all up again. I think G is really championing it to go to Olympics, but I would like to see a lot more teams down in Brighton and the whole of the south of England first.
Nearer the tournaments we get to train a lot more and like book sessions that sort of work more for us. You know, it's quite a small community at the moment, but it's quite a tight one. You know, you sort of see a lot of familiar faces every tournament.
It's incredible physical activity. I mean, you wouldn't believe how exhausted they get. It's very, very intense. Our son, and I know a lot of his friends, they don't love the traditional kind of football, rugby sports. And the fact that the technology is involved and it gives it another level. It's just an extra bonus and that encourages him.
Growing fast, there are now 8 Hado tournaments running in the UK alone. These players hoping to be selected to represent England in the World Championships in Tokyo in May, taking their game a level up. Andy Dickinson, ITV News, Hove.
Anyone for Hado?
I think we should do it.
Yeah. Let's go for
like
it.
Like a work, team bonding, team building
Yeah,
thing.
it's teams of 3, isn't it?
Yeah.
Dream
Yeah,
team.
I mean, they're literally their own world. I mean, I like the idea of that. Yeah. But I love the idea of this. This is great. A waste collection firm in Brighton called, wait for it, Lord of the Bins, has been told it has to dump its name by the global Lord of the Rings franchise.
Well, the company, run by 2 men, has been contacted by lawyers who look after the rights to the film and merchandising. But Nick Lockwood and Dan Walker said they're just on a quest to make people smile and make a living. Tom Savidis reports.
Nick Lockwood and Dan Walker can't understand why lawyers are kicking up a stink about the name of their waste collection firm. The duo run the Lord of the Bins in and around Brighton, but the name has got them into a right mess. They're accused of falling foul of trademark laws relating to the Lord of the Rings franchise.
We thought the name was great, so we chose that for a name, and then the branding came out of that really, and we just wanted to make people smile. We're a local business. As we go past people in the vans, you can see people's faces light up.
You shall not pass!
Lawyers acting for Middle-earth Enterprises, who own the worldwide rights to The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings trilogy, say the Lord of the Bins name infringes on their trademark. It means Nick and Dan could face a massive bill, possibly running into millions of pounds, unless they dump the name of their company. Are you actually a fan of Lord of the Rings?
I'll be completely honest with you, I haven't actually seen the films, but I know, you know, how big they are. I was going to watch the film, but I'm not too sure now.
The Lord of the Bins has barely been running a year, but the pressure is being piled on to change its name. Well, I've been sent here to help, to perhaps come up with a new name, but we have to keep it simple because we don't want to upset any more lawyers. How about bin it, scrap it or dump it? What do you think, guys?
Yeah, I think that's a bit rubbish, Tom. I think we're definitely kings of the bins.
Kings of the Bins? They're asking for royal trouble. Tom Savides, ITV News, Saltdean.
You know what gets me?
What?
How did they find out about them?
The people who, they always know,
they're everywhere.
They're always watching.
Pip's with us now. Pip, we've got some feathers in the weather chat.
Yeah, before we get onto the weather, we're going to look at some feathers. Yes, of course, spring is just a few short weeks away now, and the weather inbox is starting to get a bit more wildlife popping up. Things are really starting to come to life. So let's take a look at just a few of the snaps that have been coming in. Of course, robins not just for December, welcome all year round. And this little chirrupy chap was spotted in Sussex by Judy, enjoying a bit of February sunshine there. Now, kingfish is very prevalent here in the south, but hard to photograph because they are so fast moving. But Gary Morton managed to spot this one lurking on the harbour wall in Eastbourne. Oh, just stunning, beautiful. I know. At the slightly larger end of the spectrum, also in Eastbourne, this heron flying overhead. This was spotted by Jo Nunn. Now, herons tend to return to the same nest every year, back to their heronries, and Jo says this for her is a sure sign that spring is on the way. And harking back to a couple of weeks ago when it was an awful lot cooler, this mallard deciding that a dip in the frozen Sheffield Park pond wasn't the best idea.
I was just thinking, I know what that one is. That's a duck.
Well done.
Don't test me on the other ones. Just quickly, something worth looking up at the sky over the weekend.
That's right. Yes, lovely clear skies this week, and especially so Sunday night when we will have our February full moon, also known as the snow moon, because February in the Northern Hemisphere is the month for snow.
Well, let's find out if this weekend is the weekend for snow. Let's get a look at the full forecast with the details, of course. Here's Pip.
Feels like home, whatever the weather. Valent Boilers and Heat Pumps sponsors ITV Meridian Weather.
All looking pretty quiet weather-wise as we head into the weekend then. A good deal of dry and bright weather in the forecast, but it will turn increasingly chilly, and by the end of the weekend and the early part of next week we're likely to see a return of some overnight fog and frost. Not so tonight though. We'll hold on to dry conditions, but quite a bit of cloud on the scene. That in turn acting like a blanket, keeping the temperatures fairly mild for the time of year, and lows probably hovering at around 6 or 7 Celsius by dawn. So tomorrow, a frost-free start to our weekend. Quite a cloudy start initially, but I suspect as we head into the afternoon, we'll see more in the way of bright or sunny spells coming through. And in the best of the sunshine, out of the breeze, actually feeling pretty pleasant. Highs of 10 or 11 Celsius. These are the high tide times for tomorrow then. For Sheerness and Chatham, just the one each for those around the middle part of the day. But it's as we head through the latter stages of Saturday overnight into Sunday, we see something of a change. A weak cold front sinks southwards, bringing a bit more cloud again. Perhaps 1 or 2 spots of rain, but behind it a dip in those temperatures back down into single figures by day, below freezing by night, but lots of sunshine as well.
Valent sponsors ITV Meridian Weather.
And that is it, pretty much, from us for this evening and for this week. In a moment, the ITV Evening News with Charlene White this evening.
Yes, thank you so much for watching. We really do appreciate it. From all of us here, have a fabulous weekend, and we'll all be back on Monday. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.